talking about Billie Jean King Cup and that we had qualifiers over the weekend and seeing the countries advance. Great for Canada because they have that spot secured in the final stage, lieu of their victory last season. So you guarantee yourself a place. But Great Britain was, for me, the kind of the story of the weekend. Not just advancing, but the fact that Emma Raducanu, who memorably beat our Leila Annie Fernandez in that U.S. Open final back in 2021, I have to say this was, I think, maybe the best tennis she has played since then. And that obviously gives you a bit of a story into how rough it's kind of been over the past couple of seasons, countless injuries, I think struggling with pressure from media, expectations, and not really stringing together victories. For her to be in a team environment, beat a quality player like Caroline Garcia, come back from a set down, beat someone like Diane Perry. I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a stepping stone for her in her season.
Be nice because her ranking, you got to go way down to find her in the rankings now, just outside the top 300. But you also got to keep in mind that, she was out from last April until the start of this tennis season. That's a significant amount of time to miss. She's played about 8 tournaments, I think, now, and is starting to put it back together. I mean, this year she's got a win over Marie Boskova, who's a quality
Yep.
opponent. She pushed Alina Svitolina earlier this year, who's always a tough one. And now hopefully this is something that gives her some added sort of confidence moving forward. And, you don't ever want someone to regret a big moment in their career, something that should be looked upon purely with positive memories and energy, such as winning a Grand Slam. And I'm not speaking for her, but you get the sense that it has been a bit of a burden almost that she had that success so early and so soon in terms of the reaction, the negative reaction and the pressure that's been placed on her. And so yeah, I really, every time she gets a win, I can't help but cheer, even though she beat Leilani Fernandez in that final. I do have a soft spot in my heart for her and hope that things work out moving forward for sure.
Yeah, I think probably some Canadian tennis fans may have felt that in a sense. And this was more than one tournament, keep in mind, but Jeannie Bouchard and some of the struggles she went through after, that huge season and making Wimbledon final and pressure and expectations. And she almost went out of her way at one point to call it a burden as she was obviously struggling with being the Canadian number one, being someone who
And
was in
she
the
did,
top
yeah.
10. Yeah. So,
When I remember when Bianca took over that number one ranking,
yeah.
we were in a press conference with her actually with Jeannie, and I mentioned to her, how does it feel to have someone else taking on that role? And she was joking, it was kind of tongue in cheek, but she exactly what you said. She said she joked like, yeah, someone else can carry that burden right now. And on some level, there was some truth behind that for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Just to quickly wrap, US, Japan, Slovakia, Poland, Germany, Romania, all booking their place to the finals group stage over the weekend. Cool to see like Jessica Pegula going and representing for the United States, playing great. Iga Świątek getting it done for Poland, and Naomi Osaka with a couple big wins for Japan. So we had some superstar players go and compete for the qualifiers, getting their place there. Now we shift over. You look at some of these strong rosters, obviously, and we have to wonder, is it feasible for Canada to repeat? Obviously, this is months away, but now we get a sense of who they're going to be competing against.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing for me, like Canada is not the favorite, and they might not even be necessarily close to the favorite, but they're definitely a team that's going to be in the mix every time they go if they've got, the big weapons, and that's Leila Annie Fernandez, who always plays terrific for Team Canada. Next level stuff from her when representing her country. Gabby Dabrowski's the fourth ranked women's doubles player, so she's always going to be money. And then, if we can get some supporting characters in there like Marina Stakusic, I don't think necessarily we can expect the same level from her in her repeat performance. Rebecca Marino, I know her ranking's fallen out of the top 100, 150, but
Yep.
veteran presence. And then, my goodness, we've seen enough clips of her on the practice courts lately, and hopefully that bodes well for a return to the game. But if we could get a healthy Bianca Andreescu in the mix as well, she is for sure a top 30 type player when she's healthy. And you put her and Layla together in singles, Gabby in the doubles, and that's a squad that nobody is going to relish having to face for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. Honestly, if I look at all the countries, like you think the US should win this thing if they send everybody in terms of the depth of their roster. If you're bringing Coco Gauff and Bagula, and even those two as an option in doubles, I mean, you talk about someone like a Bethany Maddox Sands, Sophia Kennan, like there are a lot of great players. Madison Keys, they have a lot of options at their disposal if they can, you know, uh, get everybody there, which is always a question mark. You never really know depending on the schedule. And sometimes the WTA isn't the best with this, coordinating with the Billie Jean King Cup. If we talk a little more WTA before we shift over to the men's side, Stuttgart this week, it's a 500 level event. All of the top four are there. Iga, Swiatek, Arina Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Elena Rybakina. Iga has won this title 2 times in a row. I have to say, though, just peeking at the draw, she falls in a section with Linda Noskova, who beat her in Australia, and Yelena Ostapenko is a potential matchup in there too. And she's 0-4 against her. So a tough draw for Iga, but it is on the clay.
I like it because we've got like the top four contenders for Roland Garros, the top four
Yeah.
contenders for clay in general with those four players that you mentioned. And last year we had 1 versus 2 with Swiatek defeating Sabalenka in the finals. And it'd be great if we could see, I think, really any combination of those four players go head to head again. I just love the build up in the clay court season. You know, the Aussie Open has such a short build up. Grass court a little bit more, lengthy, but no real 1,000 level tournaments.
Hmm.
Even hard court in the summertime before the U.S. Open, you've got Canada and Cincy really is the big ones. Clay just seems to have so many big time events, and even the ones that aren't 1,000 level tournaments like this one, when you've got those four top players there, makes it seem bigger than it actually is. So one thing I got to give credit to the clay court season is it knows how to build to the culminating point there.
Yeah, and especially Stuttgart just being a draw of 32 on the women's side, you get those kind of mouth-watering matchups really early in the tournament. I think I saw Raducanu against Kerber as a first-round match, which is awesome. So there's going to be plenty of those. Always get that on the women's side, which is great. And we'll see, can Iga three-peat there? Arina Sabalenka's lost 3 consecutive finals in Stuttgart as well, so we'll see if she can maybe break through. Speaking of breaking through, Monte Carlo Masters 1000 wrapping, and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now he's won this title 3 times, getting his first win of the season. Defeated Casper Ruud in the final 6-1, 6-4. What a tournament, and absolutely the best tennis we've seen from Stefanos Tsitsipas, and I feel like maybe over a year.
Yeah, Pass is a funny guy because he can go through stretches where it clicks. I mean, last summer he won in what was it, Los Cabos.
Yes.
He had a pretty decent indoor season. Like I was going back and looking at what he did in the fall. He made the semis at the Paris Masters, losing to Dimitrov in a third set breaker, and Dimitrov was playing terrific tennis post US
Yep.
Open. But then I feel like, yeah, he gets into a stretch where maybe it's not clicking, and his ranking falls out of the top 10 for a little bit and you kind of forget about him because of the most recent events that he's been in. But on clay, I mean, this is a terrifically consistent tennis player. When we did our power rankings for Tennis Canada recently, I certainly had him ranked higher than where his ranking is right now based on what he's capable of doing. And you see, like a tournament, this one, obviously he's got the mojo there. He feels comfortable there, the perfect kind of place to reignite those confident feelings on the surface. Look, we've seen him go deep at Roland Garros and come so close, actually, really,
Yep.
too close almost. The poor guy with what happened against Djokovic a couple years ago. This is good for him, and I think puts him back into that conversation to make it a little bit more competitive heading into Roland Garros on the men's side, maybe.
Yeah, and look, 3 consecutive top 10 wins. First time he'd beaten 3 top 10 players in one tournament since Toronto National Bank Open 2018, when actually he took down 4 top 10 players en route to the final before losing to Rafael Nadal in that final. I remember that tournament. What a sensational run. And that was kind of at the time, really a breakthrough moment for him. And we remember the Greek crowd that was filling the stadium in Toronto. He had such a great crowd support. The atmosphere there was kind of electric all week. And that was sort of one of the big moments early on in Tsitsipas's career.
Really, that kind of put him on the map, I feel like. And he was so embraced by the crowd here. It almost felt like he was a Canadian or that he was like a home talent being supported by the crowd. And you know what I love about that run is it wasn't just some flash in the pan. I mean, he's had a stellar career since then.
Yep.
And at that time, you still had, big three going strong. Federer was still doing damage back in 2018. Nadal and Djokovic clearly since then have done so much as well. He's been in the game at a difficult time where those three were still very much it in men's tennis. And now he's got to try and, reassert himself with the young guys coming up like Alcaraz and Sinner because he's in that in-between phase. But still young, still lots of time ahead. and still someone who I think is going to have his say in the men's tennis landscape before, he hangs up his racket, which is still many, many years away, of course.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, the final itself, lopsided, 6-1, 6-4. Great kind of comeback win over Jannik Sinner in 3 sets. Casper Ruud, though, despite the finals result, great tournament. First time he's defeated a world number one after several tries, finally defeats Novak Djokovic in a topsy-turvy kind of tough semifinal match. Ruud led 4-1 in the third set. I watched this match. Novak seemed to be shifting momentum, hit a huge signature backhand down the line, was roaring as he broke back. It felt like the tide was turning, but Ruud kind of held his nerve, and Djokovic double faulting actually on his the third match point opportunity, which Casper Ruud said maybe that was a gift from the heavens that he finally got his first victory over Novak. But I feel like this was also a big moment for a player who has had struggles in 2023, but another guy we've seen compete in Grand Slam finals before. And I guess the knock on Ruud really has been we haven't seen him win one of these big time tournaments, but he's getting close.
Yeah, he's in that contender conversation for sure for me. And even though the final didn't play out as competitively as some might have wanted to see, there's no doubt that Ruud leaves this tournament feeling pretty darn good about himself, especially getting that win against Djokovic. I mean, if you beat any of these big three guys for the first time, that is a major deal. That is
Oh
like
yeah.
something you're going to look back upon, maybe more later at the end of your career and tell your kids or grandkids or whatever about it. But for right now, that's got to be a huge, boost. And yeah, look, Djokovic hasn't had the best start to his season, of course, but still semifinals of Australia and semis here. I think Novak's got to take some positivity from this for sure, while playing with maybe it's a temporary association, but playing with a new coach in his box as well in former doubles player Nenad Zimonjic, who used to partner with